Sometimes wedding photographers can be the worst. And I know this because, well, I'm a wedding photographer and I've been doing this for quite a while, and these are my top pet peeves of wedding photographers. I'm Luke Cleland. I'm a wedding photographer myself, and I've been doing this since 2013. And so I've seen a lot of things, crazy things. I've done some crazy things myself that I will not repeat, but I've also seen a lot of crazy things in the wedding industry. And I've seen some of these things over and over and over again, and now they've become pet peeves of mine because honestly, they make wedding photographers look bad, and they really hamper the photographer's business and their ability to succeed. So, if you are maybe doing some of these things, maybe consider what you're doing and consider a change. And it's okay. It's okay if you're doing some of these things, because when I started, I didn't know what I was doing and I made some bad choices. So we all have room to grow, but here are my 7 pet peeves of wedding photographers. The first one, and oh man, the one that I see so much, and I don't know how this happens, but it is dressing poorly at weddings. Folks, we are going to a wedding. Weddings, people dress up, they put on a suit, and for some reason, as photographers, as vendors, whether that's even a videographer or a photographer, sometimes we feel like when we're behind the camera, no one can see us and we can kind of dress like kind of chill. But that's the opposite. Everyone, you have a camera at a wedding, people are going to look at you. And even myself, I never dressed poorly at a wedding, but I thought, just dressing like black pants and a black t-shirt or a black dress shirt was, the best thing to wear. And while I think that's an okay thing to wear, I had this realization that, one, if you're at a wedding and you see the photographer, you look at them, right? Because they're moving around, they're taking photos, you're very aware of them. And I realized, wow, if all these people are looking at me and I'm dressing like okay, what is their impression of me going to be? It's going to be like, oh, there's a photographer, like every other photographer wearing black pants and a black shirt. And then I thought, what if I dressed really nicely on a wedding day? What if I had a nice suit on, tie, nice shiny shoes? I was looking good. What would happen? People would look at me and be like, wow, I've never seen a wedding photographer dress that nicely. You must know what you're doing. You must be a total expert. Trust me, it works. The second thing is taking a long time to finish photos. I've heard this over and over and over again from friends and acquaintances, or even couples. They had this experience with their sister's photographer or their brother's photographer where it took months and months. I've heard up to even a year to get wedding photos back. That is bananas. That is totally insane. At the most, it takes me 8 weeks or about 2 months to return wedding photos. And yes, wedding photography takes a lot of work. Finishing photos can be difficult, especially in busy season where you have weddings piling up and all of a sudden you look and you're like, I have like 10,000 photos to edit. How am I going to do this? And often it comes down to making sure that you have a good plan and schedule, and making sure that I know, when you shoot a wedding, sometimes you need a break before you go in and edit it, but especially during busy season, try to stay on top of things. Try to start before you need to start. Try to finish before you need to finish, and you won't be one of those horrible photographers who takes like 6 months to get someone's wedding photos back to them. That's too long. The third one is being a diva. This is very common. I've seen this happen firsthand as I've second shot for different photographers over my time. And I have seen some photographers that think that they are just totally and utterly amazing, that they are the gift to humanity. And I'm sure I acted this way, especially as a youngin'. Starting out in wedding photography, I was getting paid a few $1,000s to be there and I thought I was pretty cool, but we are there as photographers to serve. We are not there to be looked at, to be thought of as fancy schmancy wedding photographers. No, we're there to serve and do the best that we can for our couples. They are the point. They are the reason. Their wedding day is what matters. We do not. Of course, everyone matters. It's not, I'm saying we don't matter, but we are not the most important thing. And sometimes it's easy to forget that. And even though, yes, we want to look confident and we want to know that we want to look like we know what we're doing, you never want to translate that into, looking arrogant or acting like you're the most important thing in the room. Because guess what? We aren't. The fourth thing is being in the way. Getting in the way and not being aware of your surroundings. I have attended weddings. I have shot at weddings where, oh man, there's either so many photographers, so many videographers there, and maybe they're not aware, or hopefully not this, but sometimes they don't care about being in the way, standing in front of guests, standing in the aisle, in a way where they're blocking people and not moving for a long time. I think people's experience of you at the wedding day, just you walking around, how you interact, how you stand certain places, is such a huge impact at your own referral business. Sometimes guests never see the photos, but they come up to me at the end of the day and say, wow, you did such an incredible job. And I always think like, well, how do you know? You never saw any of the photos. But they're not just talking about the photography. They're assuming that your photography is going to be great, but they're watching you. They're watching how you interact with guests. They're watching how you are aware of your surroundings. Are you standing in the ceremony, blocking the guests from seeing the couple the whole time? Of course, there's times when you need to move in, take a couple photos, but consider what it would be like to be at a wedding. And are you blocking guests? Are you blocking family members from being able to fully experience the day? I think if you're really aware of that and try to make a plan to where you're not being in the way all the time, this can really impact the perception that you have to the guests, which can often be a great way to have referrals and to build your brand, to build how people think of you and the business that you're building. Number 5 is being rude to other vendors. This I don't understand. I do not understand why you would want to be mean or rude to other vendors on a wedding day, but I've seen it. Unfortunately, I've seen it too much. If you want to know a little secret about how to just make lots of money and have a successful wedding photography career, and it's this. It is treat others like you would want to be treated. Now, I know you're like, wait, I feel like I've heard that before. Well, that is probably because you have heard that before. And it's wild to me how few people take this advice seriously and use it in how they treat other vendors. I've been so surprised that I've gotten feedback from other vendors on a wedding day where they're like, wow, you're so great to work with. This was so easy. Let's work again together. And I just thought to myself, well, I was just being nice. I was just treating them how I wanted to be treated. And this goes such a far way. I know sometimes that can even be counterintuitive because you're like, okay, I'm here for my own business. I want to be successful. I want to get the most out of this opportunity. But sometimes how to get the best opportunity for yourself is to treat other people with kindness, respect, and ultimately, how would you want to be treated? Number 6 is lying about services. Well, and maybe not so much lying about services, but just not exactly the full truth, or maybe marketing in such a way that it's just let's just hide some of the truth so that people will book us and then they'll just deal with us. Now, this pet peeve is much more aimed towards photographers that are more of a company and have a roster of photographers. Now, I am not blanketing all companies like this because I think there are some companies out there that have a roster of photographers that do this really well. They're honest, upfront, and people know what they're getting. But I have had so many couples come up to me and say, Luke, We just found out about you. We wish that we knew about you at our wedding day because we hired this company and we thought like we were getting what their website was, what their Instagram was, but we ended up getting, some photographer that we didn't really like their portfolio that much, and it didn't correlate to what, they were showing. And this is such a pet peeve of mine because it's dishonest. I think it's dishonest. And even though you might want to do things like that in order to get a quick buck, in order to book a few weddings and say, hey, wow, I got them in. If you want to have a long-term and successful business, taking shortcuts may help you in the short term, but it will always come and bite you a little later, right? Be sure your sin will find you out eventually. It will come around. Being honest, being upfront, being truthful about your marketing and what people are actually going to get versus what you market, I think is so important. The last one, and this is not even just like a pet peeve. This is just like wrong and insane. And this is actually what made me think about doing this video. And I have heard this more and more. This is wild to me. I have heard about photographers booking multiple couples on the same day and either handing it off to an associate last minute. So like they booked one person, but then they were like, oh, sorry, I can't make it, but here's this associate, they're gonna shoot their wedding. And the couple's like, wait, what? I thought you were gonna shoot our wedding. That's the bad one. But the really worst one, and I've heard this now from 2 vendors that do this, is they book multiple couples and then they just choose the best one on that day and they don't show up to the other weddings. This is a true story, folks. I don't even understand how this is. I don't even understand how they can sleep at night, but they do this and it's terrible. So don't do that. Don't just like straight up be a fraud. Now, why do I tell you all these things? Why do I tell you about, these horrible pet peeves that I have that drive me nuts when I see things like this in the wedding industry? Is that just because I just want to be negative and bash on people? No. I want to tell you this because it's actually a form of encouragement. Sometimes I remember when I was in the early years of starting my wedding photography business, I felt like I was doing all the right things. I was trying to treat people as I wanted to be treated. I tried to be honest, upfront, and do the right thing. And sometimes it felt like, man, I'm just not getting the results that I want. And, oh, look at that guy. He's doing that thing with his marketing. And maybe if I did that, I would be as successful as they would be, even though it's like not the right thing to do. What I have found is building a business the right way will pay dividends in the long term. Creating an honest and trustworthy brand, even though it took time and even though it took consistency, created a wedding brand and reputation for myself that people are like, oh yeah, book Luke, don't worry about it. He's going to be amazing. Like they know what they're going to expect. And I have a lot of trust in the wedding industry. And even though that took a long time to build and it felt slow and hard at times, now it has created a really trustworthy and honest brand that people really trust, which makes a great experience for me because I have a lot of people in the industry that really trust me and want me to shoot the wedding. Let me know in the comments, are there some real big pet peeves that you have about wedding photographers? I want to hear what they are, and hopefully I don't do any of them. Okay, bye.